Hi, Jim Ziegler, the Alpha Dawg, and this session is part of my ongoing Samurai F&I school. Today we're going to talk about gap protection. Now, I know they don't sell gap in virtually every state, but most states do. And in my opinion, it's the most valuable product we sell in finance, especially right now. Think about it for a second. The majority of customers that we sell cars to today are upside down. They have inverted equity. And worse than that, with the inflated values that we're selling due to the chip shortage, we're selling cars for $5,000, $6,000. I've seen cars $10,000 over MSRP. Well, that's wonderful. We made a great profit on the initial sale of the vehicle, but that is not going to last forever. And when that comes crashing down, and 3 or 4 years from now, when these people who are in these 84-month contracts over financed, the book value on their car is going to be incredibly low. Their payoff is going to be incredibly high. Now, how do we combat this? Before COVID, before the chip shortage, the average gap claim was over $8,000. I don't even know how to venture what it's going to be today. With the inflated values on new and used vehicles that we are financing today, we're over advancing. And not only that, but you've got to remember that the people are trading in cars that they are already upside down in. The majority of people are upside down. We know that. And we are able to finance them out of that. And how do we do that? By financing the amount that they are upside down into the new loan, over advancing. And we're talking the banks into doing that. Extended terms like 84 months. Service contracts are least likely to be canceled of anything that we sell. Service contracts have the highest profitability of any of the products we sell. But as far as value to the consumer, especially right now, gap is the best protection we can offer. And, remember the Ziegler close. I believe in it. You need it. If you give me any opportunity, I'm going to make an aggressive effort to sell it to you. You might want to write that down and memorize it. I believe in it. You need it. And if you were one of my own family members, you would never leave here without it. Listen to that line. If you were one of my own family members, I would never allow you to leave here without this product. I believe in it. You need it. And if you give me any opportunity, I'm going to make an aggressive effort to sell it to you. That is a personality close, and it's I care about you close. I'm going to make an aggressive effort to sell it to you. I'm going to put some pressure on, but I'm doing it because it's in your best interest and I like you. That's the message I'm subliminally sending out there. They're not going to be offended. If you give me any opportunity, I'm going to make an aggressive effort to sell it to you. So, gap is a lifesaver to people that need it. Think about it. If you have a claim, and I go back to the Wally close that I used on other products. Now, the Wally close goes like this. It's one of the best closes I ever invented. I've taught it in other sessions in the F&I Samurai School, but let me tell you, the Wally close, named after a manager named Wally, and if you know the story, fine, I'm not going to tell it again. But anyway, when Wally was delivering the car in the F&I department, and the customer said, no, I'm not going to buy anything you sell. I'm not going to buy anything. They announced that coming in the door. I'm sitting behind Wally. Now, I'm wearing a baseball hat and a business suit, coat, and tie. An excessive amount of jewelry, a baseball hat. And I've got a coat and tie. Everybody else in the dealership, this was in the summertime, everybody else is wearing polo shirts with the dealer logo. It's obvious I'm something else. And the woman says, I'm not going to buy any of that. And after Wally did his best robotic close that he had been taught in another F&I school, sounded like a little parrot memorizing something. Wally's a friend of mine, no criticism, but still, Wally was doing what he was taught in another F&I school that was just robotic memorization. Sounded so prefab. So Wally goes through his entire pitch, and the woman says, I told you I don't want any of that. Like I said, I'm sitting behind him at another desk, bigger F&I office than most. So I'm sitting behind him, and I said, excuse me, Susan, my name's Jim Ziegler. I'm a public relations consultant from Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm just here this week, and I couldn't help but overhear. And I can agree with you that you probably don't need the environmental package because, truthfully, you say you garage your car. Okay, I understand that. But let me ask you a question. Do you have $25 in your purse right now? Oh, yes, I do, she said. Okay, you've got $25 in your purse. And I'll bet you 3 or 4 days from now, you won't be able to tell me what you did with that $25. You might have given it to your children, grandchildren to put into video machines in quarters at Chuck E. Cheese's. I mean, you won't know what you did with that $25. It's frivolous money. It's pocket change. It's not important. It's in your purse. You will probably spend that on frivolous purchases. And she said, yeah, you're right. I said, Susan, do you have $8,500 in your purse right now? Oh, no, of course not. Matter of fact, do you have $8,500 in your bank or in fluid cash anywhere? No, I don't. So in other words, if you had to raise $8,500 right now on the spur of the moment, you'd have to sell something or borrow something. You know, you struggled with the down payment. You told us that. And now if you had an $8,500 immediate payout that you had to scramble for the money, it would be a major disruption in your life. And she said, yes, it would. So, you know, Susan, our average gap claim is more than $8,500. And the gap protection that we sell here is much less than that $25 you've got in your purse every month. Frivolous money, you know, I can limit your liability for that $8,500 to a small, known, manageable amount, something you can handle readily, as opposed to a catastrophic amount coming at you when you're least able to handle it. And you know, listen to that word track. A small, known, manageable amount, something you can handle, frivolous money. But on the other hand, it's opposed to a catastrophic amount coming at you when you're least prepared to handle it. And her husband sitting next to her said, I think we ought to get that. Yes, he did. I swear he did. I think we ought to get that. And I sold him several items in F&I after Wally had made his best effort. And I did it using word tracks that I had taught him that morning. And he opted to go with what he learned in the service contract F&I school. It's a true story. So I call that the Wally close, and Wally knows I teach that. So anyway, when I interview finance managers, I said, why would somebody purchase gap protection, guaranteed asset protection? You know, what are the major objections that consumers give you about gap? Well, the number one thing that they state or don't state with gap, they might say this, they might not. They don't believe you. Think about that for a minute. Consumers don't believe you. They believe you are a liar. Every vendor that we do business with tells them you are a liar. We're spending millions of dollars, maybe billions, I don't know, dealers collectively paying vendors to slander us. Yes, we do. And it's amazing. I was watching a Vroom commercial where the manager was electrocuting a person with, it's unbelievable. This is what you're going to expect in a dealership. They're going to put battery cables on you and electrocute you. Don't visit the showroom ever again. These people are criminals. That's what they tell people about us. So when the customer comes in, they don't like you. When I teach F&I schools, the first thing I have to teach is we hired you because we suspected you had a personality. Don't sit there and repeat robotic memorized phrases at them. Use your personality. You've got to establish common ground, and you've got to be a precision closer. You've got to have a personality. You've got to relate to the people. You've got to find a common ground where you and them have something in common. And you've got to win them over before you sell them anything. Remember, F&I is finesse and persuasion. It's not trickery. Finesse, persuasion. The best F&I manager that I would ever hire, if I could do it, would be a 6-year-old. Because your 6-year-old doesn't know how to take no for an answer. Think about that. 6-year-olds are much better closers than you are. So anyway, they don't believe you. So when you tell them that their insurance company is not going to pay off the total balance on their loan, they don't believe you. So you have to have some third-party verification. I like to have copies of standard insurance policies for Allstate, Geico, State Farm. I have all these policies. I try to collect the wording on them and have it in my office to show what I call third-party verification. Something documented that I can show them that they can look at. And, let's face it, most insurance companies do not pay off the car. They pay book value. They pay wholesale value on the vehicle. Now, some of them offer new car replacement. I think that's Allstate. I'm not sure, but some of the insurance companies do offer new car replacement. Okay, that replaces your car with a new car. But once again, if you're 15,000, 16,000, 12,000, 8,500 upside down, they're not going to cover that. They still need the gap protection. And I've had people say to me, well, Mr. Ziegler, wait a minute. I can buy gap protection from my insurance company. Allstate, all these people, they also sell guaranteed asset protection. Well, one thing you as an F&I manager need to know, it is not the same coverage that we offer. And by the way, you've got to know your policy inside and out. You've got to know exactly what your gap covers. Don't make it up. Spend a little time looking at the documents. Ask your agent that sold you the gap policy, who's backing the gap policy, what do we cover? Do you have any documentation of claims that we've paid off? I'll keep that in a scrapbook. Well, I will white out the customer's names and identifying information and show the consumer, here's gap claims we paid off. Here's gap claims we paid off. I had an F&I manager extremely successful in Texas that actually had a copy of his own gap claim on the wall in his office to show the consumer that, yes, I believe in it, I purchased it, and I collected on it. What strong testimonial, third-party verification. F&I management needs to learn third-party verification. Some documentation or some third party saying that what you're saying is the truth. It's a shame, but we've got a reputation for being liars, even though that is not the case. We never not. I don't teach it, and I don't want people to ever do it. I will persecute you if you are a criminal. If you are a criminal, I personally will try to run you out of my business. Excuse me, you don't need to lie, cheat, sneak, deceive, or misrepresent to sell cars or finance. Persuasion, finesse, knowing your product, that's how we sell things. But anyway, you have to have a personality too, by the way. Why would you create a conflict of interest for your insurance company? This is an original Ziegler close. I mean, it's going around the country. I mean, it's a lot of people, a lot of things I created have become standard in the industry. you know, only way I can prove that I created this closing technique is that I've got it in writing 20, 25 years ago. So yeah, I've got documentation that I invented it, but it's become. I am so proud of so much I have invented. It's become standard in the industry. Here's one of them. Why would you create a conflict of interest for your insurance company? What do you mean, Mr. Ziegler? What do I mean, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer? If you bought your gap protection from your insurance company that also has your collision and comprehensive, if you bought your gap policy from the same people that cover you in an accident, if you had that comp and collision, if you had Allstate as your gap policy, and Allstate also has your comp and collision, your standard insurance, and you had a wreck, and that wreck was pretty severe, and that car should be totaled out. They should total it and pay it off and get you a new one. But now they've got your gap policy and your comp and collision. And they have to examine, is the gap policy cheaper to fix an unsafe car, or do they total the car out like they should? The car should be totaled out, but it might be conceivably cheaper to exercise the gap claim. One or the other. They might repair an unsafe car if the comp and collision repair, and that car should have been totaled out. It should have been a gap claim. But they look at it and say, hey, it's going to cost a lot more to pay the gap than to repair an unsafe car. So they have a debate on which is cheaper for their best interest. You created a conflict of interest. When I tell consumers that, I watch them, they start shaking their head, they agree with me, and they oftentimes buy the gap protection. So once again, gap is for theft, the unrecoverable theft, or total loss. Gap is the most valuable product we sell. And I tell people that I purchase it on my own vehicles. And yes, I do finance my cars. I mean, why would you pay cash? I mean, I'm generally buying $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 vehicles. And believe me, I can stroke a check for any car I want. Why would I do that? Mr. Customer, you're paying cash for a vehicle? Did you have a brain cramp? Excuse me. You're paying cash for a car? I mean, Mr. Customer, you've got $65,000 in fluid cash. Let me ask you a question. Mr. Customer, last year, my investables made over 10%. My investments, my financial advisors invested well, and I made over 10% on my money. Mr. Customer, are you making a pretty good return on your investments? Oh, you must be if you've got $65,000 just laying around in frivolous cash. Okay, so you're going to put $65,000 and you made 9% on your money last year? Did you? So, Mr. Customer, you're telling me you made 8% on your money last year, even 6%. You made 6% on your money last year. And you're going to take $65,000 out of production that's earning 6, 8, 10%. I can give you a 0% loan. I could give you a 2% loan, whatever the case. Why would you take $65,000 out of production? What are you thinking? That doesn't that doesn't indicate to me you're making the wisest decision in your best interest. I am fully capable of buying any car I would like for cash, but I always finance my own cars for that very reason. My investables make a lot more that, if I don't want to take $60,000, $70,000 out of production. Real good close on a cash conversion, by the way. Once again, if you have gap protection, it'll take you out of the line of fire if you have a total. We will work directly with the lender and the payoff. We'll work with that. You are not involved in all the technicality of getting out of that loan and paying up. The gap company will assume that responsibility. Mr. Ziegler, I haven't had a wreck in years. I'm an extremely safe driver. How many people have heard that? I am an extremely safe driver. Haven't had a wreck in years. Well, Mr. Customer, every wreck includes, most of them include two drivers or somebody else at fault. Even if you're an extremely safe driver, somebody else might be at fault. If you're in a no-fault state, it still comes back on your insurance company. So, Mr. Customer, no matter how safe you are, remember there's usually two parties in an accident. And nobody wakes up this morning and says, oh, I think I'm going to have a wreck today. I promise you, nobody ever knew they were going to have a wreck until seconds before it happened. You can be an extremely safe driver for years, and all of a sudden, there it is. Well, Mr. Ziegler, I live in a very affluent neighborhood. Where do you think they steal cars? Do you think people steal cars in the hood? What are you thinking? They go where nice cars are. Yeah, excuse me, Mr. Customer. Because remember, all insurers insure the car for its actual cash value. Some insurers have an optional new car replacement that you pay additional for. But still in all, that only replaces the new car. It doesn't cover the amount of negative equity, the upside downness. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's my Samurai F&I gap protection. I believe it is the best value we can sell to a consumer, and your personal belief in the product is your number one closing tool. Just another tip or two from the Alpha Dawg.